Have a seat, right? Either one.
The microphone open?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. I think this is working. Is it picking up?
Yeah.
Now we can get to serious stuff. I can tell some John Gizzi stories.
Oh, gee. Thank you, Chris. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm told that the estimated crowd in the audience is 740, and
Okay.
that's pretty good.
That's amazing. It's actually a great number. For one state to have 750 people.
I've gone to a lot of the state conservative meetings like this, but I can say there is really none that packs the punch that PLC does. And I just mentioned it's poignant to be here with Chris Ruddy tonight because in 2013, days after he formally hired me for Newsmax, I came here, and it was on this stage that Lowman Henry first announced my new position, and that was 13 years ago. And at PLC last year, I had just come from New York, where Chris was on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and ringing the storied bell when Newsmax had officially gone public. Everyone talked about it that night, and Lowman said to me, right at that table, "Can we get Chris Ruddy as our speaker a year from now?" And I said, "I think so." And here it is.
True story. True history.
Well, Chris, I think what everyone in this audience wants to hear most is just what made you start the publication 28 years ago, and how'd you do it?
Well, I had been in journalism, accidentally had sort of gotten into journalism. I was planning to go into finance and business, and I was hired at the New York Post as my first major position. I was an investigative reporter, broke a number of stories that made national headlines, including the Vince Foster story on the Whitewater scandal. That got the attention of Dick Scaife and a few people, so I went to work for Dick. And then I would go out to California. I was on the talk radio. Mike Reagan, who you had up there, is a great friend of mine. It was on Newsmax until he just passed. We would just get tremendous interest from California. And there was a guy that had just been fired from the CBS gift shop that started a website with link to all my stories. His name was Matt Drudge and the Drudge Report. So I saw the power of the internet. I'm thinking, this is 1996, 97. I said, Matt Drudge is brilliant, but I think I can turn this into a real business. So in 98, with $25,000 investment, I started Newsmax. And it took off, Newsmax.com, as a digital website. We were really the dominant conservative media on the online position for many years. And then in 2012 to 14 period, I decided America needed another channel and we needed to go video. And that's when I launched the TV channel.
Well, that brings me to a point. Today, Newsmax is one of the 4 top-rated cable networks in the United States. What would you say is the one decisive factor that put Newsmax where it is?
Well, one thing I would add is last year, we were number 6 for all cable, according to Nielsen, so total day ratings. There's hundreds of cable channels. We did not have the bank account of Rupert Murdoch. It's people like you that made it decisively successful, where to the point it's not just the cable channel anymore. We have Newsmax 2, our streaming channel you can get. You can download our free app today. It takes about a minute. Newsmax, it's free. And you can watch our streaming channel for free anywhere in the world. I was just in Europe and the Middle East with Bibi Netanyahu and others, and I was watching my channel in other countries. And so the ease of which the ability for people to get it has helped. And we've just had a tremendous impact to the point that about 50 million people will read or watch us regularly. We have about 25 million people going through social media now watching us. So I don't know, John, if there was any one single inflection point, because I think over time when we launched, I was a little surprised. I'm one of these guys that's a build it and they will come. Theodore Herzl had created Israel, the state of Israel. I'm Catholic, but I'm a great admirer of Herzl. He had this idea of creating facts. He's like, we don't have a country? Oh, sure, we have a flag. We don't have a capital? Sure, we have Tel Aviv at the time. We don't have this or that. And you create the facts of it, so you just build it. And I thought, build it and they will come. And it was a little surprising that we, in 2014, didn't get the audience initially. But we were getting cable distribution, and over time the audience came on God's time. And it's a massive audience now compared to Fox is still the number one, but in the universe of cable channels, we're big.
Now, the mainstream media, and indeed people I run into and deal with day to day, refer to Newsmax as a right-of-center network. Is that accurate in your opinion? And if not, how would you characterize it?
Well, I've always said we're independent media with a conservative perspective. I've been very proud from day one to say I'm a conservative. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm very proud. But to me, conservative perspective means you're open to other perspectives. We've always invited liberals onto Newsmax television, our website, for opinions. Through the years, we've had a number of very famous liberal columnists from Fareed Zakaria to Margaret Carlson to Susan Estridge, a lot of people. So to me, I'm not afraid of liberal opinion. I do think there's become too much polarization where they're not, and I think that somebody's right wing is like Breitbart. They don't want to hear any opinion that's not their own. And so we're more balanced on that, so I do think we're center right. There's an effort by the left, not only here in the United States, but across Europe. Anything that's conservative, they just say is right wing, because they think that's derogatory, it looks extreme. And the more they make you extreme, it makes their extreme positions they feel more centrist. So it's a little bit of maneuvering, but we're conservative, and we, as I said, if you watch Newsmax, I think you'll think it's pretty fair. Senator Fetterman of this state is an amazing guy, and he watches Newsmax. He tells me his mother watches it all the time, which is pretty amazing. But he says, my liberal friends, they scream and yell when I go on Newsmax. And I said, really? He said, yeah. And I tell them, they're more straight on Newsmax than these quote-unquote liberal media. They just report the news and what I say and what I do. They don't do anything strange. That's Fetterman saying that. And other people have said that, which is good. It's reassuring.
Now, you are almost always identified in national press reports as, quote, a friend of President Trump. How did you and the president become friends, and how long have you known him?
I like to say that I'm his only friend. So well, I think Melania beats me on that one, but I became friends. I actually met Donald Trump about 30 years ago. And then in '98, 27 years ago, I guess it is now, 28 years, he gave a speech about running for president in Palm Beach, and we were sitting at a table like this. And it was rather interesting. He was running for president back then. He was thinking about running on the Reform Party ticket. Now, Donald Trump then was a business Democrat. And he was a Democrat only until 2014 or 15. I don't know if you know that. And he, over time, had a transition. Can we use that word now? We should call it good transitions. You know, he sort of like during the Obama years, he really thought Obama was undermining America. And as a Democrat, he really was sort of angry. And then he saw his attack on business. But I've probably spoken to her and seen him on average once a week for 25 years. And I know him very well, been a member of Mar-a-Lago, the golf club, et cetera. He's not the man a lot of people in the press think he is, where they attack him all the time. He's very nuanced and very interesting, and he's a little bit different today than he was in the past. But he is a man of action. He's got bold ideas. He's a visionary, and he gets things done. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of things that he gets done just in one. No president in history has had the record he's had for the past year or so. And, you know, I just love his ordinariness and his down-to-earthness. And he's actually, I'll say, he's actually a pretty humble guy. People said, really? Yeah, I said, you know, he's the type of guy. He says, Chris, you want a hat? I'll get you a hat. And he goes walking like all the way across the building to get a hat. And like, he's got 10 staff and employees. He could just easily say, get Chris a hat, right? But we had dinner over the New Year's period, the Sunday between Christmas and the New Year's, and there's typically a Sunday buffet at the golf club, and my guest that night was the Pope's brother, Louis Prevost. And the Pope's brother lives in Florida and loves Newsmax, loves Donald Trump. And he heard about his brother becoming Pope watching Newsmax. And the president and I were in Qatar at the state dinner, and he asked me to ride in his car with him back to the hotel. And I told him that, you know, the Pope had just been elected, and he's like, his brother's amazing. He had MAGA signs all over his house. This guy is great. And he said, can you get him to come to the White House? So they did a brief photo, but they didn't really get to see each other. So when the president heard that Louis was coming in, he sort of was so excited the Pope's brother was coming. And so he comes into the buffet. The president said, you know, we're actually doing 3 dinners that night. I like 3 dinners. The buffet is not enough. He said, you got to meet me at 6 o'clock. Now, I've never known the president to be at the Sunday buffet at 6 o'clock. Usually it's 7:30, 8 o'clock. And he shows up at 6:15 with the Secret Service. He has his big seafood platter. He sees the Pope's brother. He says, you're wonderful. He says, you're very pro-MAGA. I love you. He says, now your brother, he really likes me, doesn't he? He says, those tweets he puts out, he doesn't really mean them. And then Louis sort of gave a very diplomatic answer and handled that very well. I won't go into all the details. But he then says, you know, your brother got the job because of me. And that threw Louis for a loop. It threw me for a loop. He says, no, they wanted somebody that would challenge me, an American. They needed someone on the world stage. And so Louis says, oh, okay, that's... So the backstory on this is we were covering Rome, and I had a party for journalists in Rome. Yeah. You were there that night, and I look at my phone, and there's like 100 phone calls in the White House. So I step out, and Margot Martin says, the president's in the Oval. He's trying to get a hold of you. So I get the president on the line, and he says, I'm here, Chris, with JD, Sergio, Carolyn Levin. You know all these people. And where are you? I said, I'm here. Oh, he says, you're there with the popes, the future pope? I said, the conclave just started. They're picking the pope. He said, well, you know, some people, Chris, say that I would make a very good pope. They just say it. So I'm on the speakerphone, and I said, Mr. President, you know, I can actually have a real conversation with him. I said, Mr. President, you would make a great pope, but first you have to become a Catholic. I could hear J.D. laughing. The president doesn't laugh at these type of things. And then he says, Chris, you know, here's what I really want. I want an old Italian. We need an old Italian. Like, do you remember John the 23rd, Paul the 6th? Can you ask them to get me something like that? But this is the type of guy he is. He's very interesting and engaging, and He's very down to earth, and I've known many political figures around the world. I was just with Bibi alone for about an hour, and we did an interview with him. Different personality, but Trump is of that. No one can match his engagement with real people at both a mass media level and then on a personal level. He's like off the charts.
What differences do you see between Trump in his first term and in the non-consecutive second term?
Well, I think there's a lot of changes. I think personnel is policy, right? So this time he picked brand over loyalty oftentimes the first term. And so he thought that was an obstacle for many of the things he wanted to do. He did a lot in the first term. So the first term wasn't so bad. He got interrupted by COVID. I think he did a lot to handle COVID. It was tremendous, his response. So this time he wants just loyalty, and he's people that are supporters, and experience and brand is not so important. So Pete Hegseth, who had no military really experience managing, he had served in the military, he never managed a company, he had never, he had been a TV host and not even one of the prime hosts, becomes defense secretary. Well, General Mattis, who was a very famous general, became the first term, but the president had problems there. So we wanted people that could implement for him. The other thing is his energy level was off the charts the first term. Now it's like beyond off the charts. The man doesn't stop. He's constantly, I just see him going nonstop all the time. He's tweeting. I mean, literally goes from 6 in the morning till 2 in the morning. I don't know where he finds the energy or the ability to do it. Sometimes he looks very tired, but yet his brain is supercharged when you talk to him. So, and I think this time he seems very anxious to get a lot of things done very quickly. I think it's worked well for him in many of these peace deals and other things. The big beautiful bill he's accomplished a lot of the anti-woke stuff is terrific. I think we're seeing now some hiccups with the Iran thing. And because maybe that wasn't planned out as much as it could have been. And I think he decided to move quickly because of opportunities that the Israelis raised. At least that's been in the press. But I think the president's already accomplished with Iran what he had set out to. Remember, the whole thing was ending the nuclear program. That's been done in the first 10 days. So I really believe he had a victory there, and it's mission accomplished there. I think that now he's trying to do much more. He would like to see regime change to the point that he can actually have somebody he can deal with. In Venezuela, he had this unique thing, Delcy Rodriguez, and I was down to see her. I was the only media person with Rob Schmidt that they invited in. I spent time with her, and she's been fantastic for the United States, great to work with, is transitioning into a democracy. So the president sees this, like if I could find an Ayatollah that might arise, that I can do a deal with, we can get. So the Israeli view is like, hey, let's turn Iran into a parking lot. Let's stop it from having any military threat to the region and the United States and Israel for the next 30 years. We don't care about regime change. If it happens, fine, but that's not our goal. Trump's position is actually slightly different. He doesn't want to destroy the infrastructure. He'd prefer to keep the country largely intact. He just wants a leader he can deal with. And nobody's playing ball with him, which is a problem. And I think what nobody fully appreciates is how fanatic the regime is. It's essentially a death cult, something akin to what we had in Japan at the end of the war. And it took 2 atomic bombs, not saying that that's going to be used here, but 2 atomic bombs, and the third one was on the plane ready to go before the emperor finally surrendered. But the president's moving at a different level. He's faster, he's engaging with people differently, and he's getting things done. And I think in the long term, the country's going to be safer and more secure. Some of the things I talked about China, he's obviously the only guy that's been pushing this issue and moving it very aggressively, and I think that's good.
You mentioned Japan. I was there 2 weeks ago, and Newsmax was instantly recognized by a lot of the officials, including a member of Prime Minister Takaichi's cabinet, members of the Diet whom I spoke to, and everyone got around to asking me eventually, when will there be Newsmax Tokyo? Let's take their questions that I heard in Tokyo and expand it. Where is Newsmax going to go in terms of being international?
If Japan has a diet, I'm going to avoid it. I like to eat, so. I know you heard that one before, right, John?
Yes, that's right.
So, Newsmax is international already. Believe it or not, we're available in 100 countries, and in about 10 countries they do it broadcast in or plan to in local language. Actually, we have a country I signed that we'll be announcing soon, where they actually take, like in the Balkans, they have Newsmax Balkans, Serbia, it's in Serbian language. They have 200 reporters. They have all our, it looks like Newsmax, but it's Serbian, and they cover the world, and it's a very impressive news. It's the #1 news in that region, channel. It's sort of like the CNN. And a lot of countries don't like CNN, believe it or not. They think it's terrible. It's a terrible representative of the United States, and it's pushing woke ideology all over the world. So a lot of businesses and communities prefer Newsmax. And so we are signing these international deals where appear in Latin America on DirecTV Latin America. They actually take like Rob Schmidt and Greg Kelly at night, and they auto dub it with AI in Spanish. So that people are actually listening to the actual live show as it's happening in Spanish. That Dominican Republic, by the way, also does it. So that's really cool, and that's going to happen all over the world with our channel. So we see the international expansion as very important because it's a projection, we believe, of American values. And they need the truth. Like, you think the press is bad here? It's even worse in Europe. And it's so far left, they don't even have the type of infrastructure we have. At least we have some talk radio. We have some conservative media. We have Fox, Newsmax, et cetera. So this is a big challenge for the rest of the world because it's a titanic struggle for freedom, not just here, but around the world. And the Chinese are playing into the game. The Russians are putting a lot of money. I mean, Newsmax has consistently supported Ukraine. And the only reason Ukraine is in trouble here in the United States because they had very strong bipartisan support. It's very clear to me Russia pumped tens of millions, hundreds of millions into influencing Western countries, including the United States, social media, and creating a false narrative about what was going on there. They are doing it to Israel, and other countries from the Gulf are doing it about Israel and Jews. The level of anti-Semitism in this country is off the charts. The amount of anti-Semitism coming from people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Fuentes, and others is disturbing, it's disgusting, it's despicable, and it's very dangerous. Not for Jews, for all of us, because, historically Jews have been the canary in the mine shaft. When they go out and take out Jews and anti-Semitism becomes acceptable, other forms of discrimination become very real. Newsmax has been one of the few media going out challenging this stuff going on. I was glad to see President Trump just did a tweet criticizing some of these people, but we have not been afraid of raising these issues either on our channel or social media about what they're doing. And I hope people that are buying into some of the anti-Israel stuff would review that and look at the facts. Like, for instance, they'll say Israel is committing genocide in Gaza or in Hezbollah. Like Tucker said, they're bombing these poor people. Israel never fired a missile at anyone to start. They never went in and killed an innocent person. They didn't go in and slit the throats of 1,400 innocent men, women, and children in Lebanon. They have been bombed for 20 years with missiles coming in from Hezbollah that have been funded by the Iranians as proxies. And they say, oh, well, they're not together. Look what they're doing now in the negotiations. Of course Iran's together with Hezbollah, with the Houthis, and they've been attacking Israeli interests, U.S. servicemen, and everybody just looks the other way. And Donald Trump's the first guy to say, this has got to stop. This is insane. But the idea that Israelis would go in and commit, they do not kill innocent people if they don't have to. If they bomb an area, they send leaflets in and notify everybody to get out. But these are bad guys, and we saw it on October 7th, and we should stand with our Democratic allies. And it's not because of them. You know, the Iranians have said repeatedly, the United States is the great Satan, not Israel. If they get a nuclear bomb, I believe they would detonate it first in New York, not in Tel Aviv.
Well, on that note, Chris, thank you very much.
On that positive note. And John is a tremendous journalist. You have no idea the depth. Every congressman, every senator, he draws tremendous respect. Now, for a guy with pink socks, he does really well for himself. But one of the things I discovered is every foreign journalist that comes to Washington as a White House correspondent, John's been there for 30 years, he immediately becomes sort of a mentor to them, particularly the females. And whenever I travel, sometimes I'll have dinners for media in other countries. And this maybe happened 15 years ago in Paris, and I suddenly discovered John knew every beautiful journalist in Paris. It was a rather amazing thing, but I told him I would never tell anyone about it, so.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, John.
Well, as Angelina Jolie once said to Brad Pitt, I won't keep you long. Please enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll see you at 7 a.m. tomorrow.
Thank you.
That's not the conclusion of the program just yet, ladies and gentlemen, so hang on. How about another round of applause for these two guys? And by the way, Chris Ruddy has sent Lohman baseball caps and also mouse pads galore. So they want to make sure that when you leave here this evening that you grab a mouse pad and a hat.
And don't forget to download the app so you can listen to John Gizzi on there. It's free. Newsmax, iOS, Android, whatever.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, be here tomorrow for John because that's always interesting. Thank you very much.